Good morning, third grade friends. It is Monday, December 7th, and you're just in time for reading. We're going to do our background knowledge and our overview for our story of the week. It's a pretty good one, and I think you're going to enjoy it. When we are finished with our Google Meet, you have your activity on the Google form to work on your comprehension for this week, and then you have your Lexia time. With your extra reading time, you have a choice board for science, social studies, and writing, and then you have some time for some fluency, and then some of you are going to hang out afterwards to do some reading checks and some Mr. Bill fluency checks. So let's get the show on the road. Our story this week is called Pushing Up the Sky. There's a cover of the book here, and you can see that there are people and animals holding sticks and poking at the clouds. So that gives us an interesting picture of what's going to happen in our story this week. We're going to talk about our question of the week. It's going to be about explaining things that happen in nature. Our spelling and phonics, our word work skill this week is prefixes. The comprehension strategy is story elements, parts of a story. Vocabulary, we're going to talk about our weekly words that have some science connections for our story. The genre or the kind of story that this is a drama. So we're going to talk about putting on a play. And the author's purpose is to entertain, which I can predict because there's a deer and a bear holding a stick. So that's not something that normally happens. So I can pretty much infer, like we did last week, draw the conclusion this is probably a fiction story to entertain. Our question of the week says, how do people explain things in nature? Our story is going to be telling from someone's culture a story of how something exists in nature, and we're going to check in on our question. So let me pull this up. If it lags, I'll send you the video after. If you can't see or hear, put that in the chat box and we will take care of you. So our question, how do people explain things in nature so they can understand them?
How do people explain things in nature? For thousands of years, people have been explaining things about nature by telling stories. Community elders used to be among the best storytellers. People would go to them to find out where animals were abundant, why rainfall came in sudden torrents, and then became scarce, how to stop crops from shriveling and dying, and where to find the most fertile farmland. Often, elders would explain these natural occurrences using stories and myths. This week, you will learn that people use myths to explain nature, use totem poles to tell stories, and hand down stories from generation to generation. How do you explain things in nature?
In our question this week, we have learned that one way to explain things that happen in nature is by telling stories. The pictures on your screen and the story this week come from a Native American culture. They sit around with their family and they tell stories. And this is a picture of a totem. The pictures in the statue represent different stories and different things that tell us stories. So we got some really cool things to look at this week. In the background, you see the night sky, where different cultures and different things have stories about the sun and the stars, and it's pretty cool. This week and next week, we're going to do some social studies connections that go with these things too, talking about family traditions and winter holidays and ways that we can tell stories to explain things that happen in our cultures and maybe in some nature too. So I think you're really going to enjoy the story this week. It's some really cool things to do. That video I think might have lagged a little bit. I will share it in the activity after this. And remember that this video, all of our Google Meet videos go in the Google Classroom also. For our spelling phonics skill, we've been calling it word work since it's work that we do with words. We're talking about prefixes. Un, re, mis, dis, and non. And prefixes are little pieces that we add to the beginning of words that we already know to change the meaning a little bit. Last week, we made a connection to contractions, where we dropped the way that we said different words using an apostrophe. to make different words, and it's kind of like what we're doing this week. We're adding a little piece of the word to the beginning. So I know what the word appear means. It means to see something. If I add re to the front, it means reappear, so I can see it again. Next to it, we have a connection word. It says disappear. I know appear means to see something. If it disappears, it goes away. So re, un, miss, dis, and non. Let's go back to the slides for a minute and check in with Annie and Moby. Same video procedures. If it starts to lag on you, the video will be shared out later, but if your sound is a problem, put in the box and I'll see what I can do, or leave the meet and come back. But I think we're in good shape now. So let's check in with Annie about prefixes. Maybe. There it is.
Just add one more to the top. It's okay, Moby. We can rebuild it. What are prefixes? A prefix is a letter or a group of letters that is attached to the beginning of a word to change its meaning. Well, in the word rebuild, the root word is build. The prefix re means again. So rebuild means to build again. When you rewrite something, you write it over again. When you replant a flower, you plant it again. The prefix miss means wrong or badly. So misspell means to spell incorrectly. People misbehave when they mistreat others. Cool. Here's superstar. The prefix super can emphasize the meaning of a word or make it greater. Prefixes can change the meaning of a word. What prefixes give a word an opposite meaning? In the word unsafe, the root word is safe, but the prefix un means not. So unsafe means not safe. Cake has unequal slices. It's lucky if your ice cream falls. You unwrap it. The prefix dis also means not. You might dislike something or disagree with someone. Pinocchio's nose grew when he was dishonest. I can think of other prefixes that give the root word an opposite meaning. The prefixes ill, im, n, usually mean not. Illegal means not legal. Impossible means not possible. Inconsiderate means not considerate. Irresponsible means not responsible. What prefixes describe amounts or numbers? You can use words that you know to help you figure out what prefixes mean. I know a bicycle has 2 wheels, and binoculars have 2 lenses. A tricycle has 3 wheels, and a triangle has 3 angles or corners. So the prefix bi means 2, and tri means 3. There are 100 years in a century, so the prefix cent means 100. There are 1,000 millimeters in a meter, so the prefix milli means 1,000. I know there are a ton of prefixes, but you learn them as you read. How can prefixes help you understand what you read? I'm reading a book about plants. Some plants can grow in sub-zero temperatures. I'm not sure what the word sub-zero means. I can break apart the prefix and the root to help me understand. I know that a submarine travels underwater and a subway travels below ground. The prefix sub must mean under. So, sub-zero temperatures must mean temperatures that are below 0 degrees.
Alrighty, so that was a quick check-in with prefixes. I know the video got kind of weird for some of us, but luckily that is a review. Here we have some of our prefixes in action. My friend Landon says I have an unusual memory. Nonsense, I disagree. My memory is just as unreliable as anyone else's. But I do know how to reconnect with unclear memories. Let's say I can't remember where I misplaced my math book. All I do is mentally retrace my steps from the time the book disappeared. As I rerun the day nonstop in my mind, an unexpected picture pops up and I'm reminded where my book is. I urge Landon to try my foolproof method. In our story and some of our work this week, we're going to see words with these prefixes. There are words that we use that have prefixes all the time. They take words that we know and change the meaning just a little bit. So prefixes are our skill for this week. On Friday or by Friday, I'll show you what our test looks like to see how we can use that in our context of our book. Next order of business is comprehension. Our comprehension strategy this week is something called literary elements. You may not remember it by that title, but literary elements or story elements are the parts of a story. These include the character, the people or animals in the story that do the action, the setting, which is the when and where the story takes place, and the plot. The plot is the action that happens in the story. The plot is broken down sometimes into the problem, which is what goes wrong or what happens in the story, and the solution, which is how do the characters fix that problem. In a story, we usually have a theme or a lesson that can be learned from the story, and these are all the things that work together, like we talked about this morning. They kind of synergize to make the story work together so it makes sense to us. So let's do a quick check-in, make a connection to literary elements, the parts of a story. This video talks about character and setting, and it highlights the theme or the lesson.
Pioneers once crossed America in covered wagons. We can learn more about pioneers and their adventures in stories. Stories have four main elements: character, setting, plot, and theme. A character is a person or animal who takes part in the events of a story. Characters can be real or make-believe. We discovered things about characters by what they say and do, and how the author describes them. The characters' words and actions can help us guess what the characters might do next in the story. The setting is the time and place in which the story happens. Knowing when and where a story takes place can give us ideas about the actions and behaviors of characters. Like characters, the setting can also be real or make-believe. Is this a real or make-believe setting? A story's plot is the important events in the story that happen at the beginning, middle, and end of the story. The plot starts with a problem and ends with a solution. The theme is the big idea of a story. What do you think the theme of this story might be? What did you learn about the people in the story? Maybe you learned that life as a pioneer wasn't easy.
Alrighty, so the parts of a story are the things that make it happen. The characters or the people or animals that do the actions in the story. The setting tells us when it's happening or where it's happening. And then the plot is the exciting part. The plot is all the action that happens. Theme we've talked about before. Theme is the main idea, like why we're here today for the point of the story. So we're going to talk a little bit about the story elements and the literary pieces in our story this week, so you know that it makes sense. The comprehension strategy, I left it off on our slides. It's inferring again, so it's a connection to last week when we drew the conclusions based on what we had. When you infer, you take new information that you're getting from your text and old information that you already had in your brain to come up with ideas or to draw conclusions to understand what's happening in our story. Your vocabulary for this week is talking about unknown words. There's a prefix in the word unknown. It means you don't know these words. We have 6 of them. Let me go over here. We're going to do an activity later on this week. We're going to be matching those words. Our first word is antlers. Antlers are the bony things on the top of a deer, elk, or moose's head. The antlers are what sits on their head. Imagined has a suffix, ed. It makes a picture or an idea in your head. Languages, it's plural, like antlers, has an S as a suffix on the end. It's the human speech that's spoken or written of cultures or groups. That's what we talk. That's what we say to each other. The narrator is the main person who tells the story. Overhead is a compound word. It means exactly what it says, over your head. The ceiling is overhead, or the sky is overhead. And poked has a suffix, the ed, which means that in the past, if you push with force against something or someone, if you poke something, you are pushing against it. So those are your vocabulary words in the sequence of our story this week. Nope, too little. Our story this week is called Pushing Up the Sky, and you're going to listen to it when you start your activity today. The genre or the kind of story that it is this week is a drama. A drama uses dialogue to present characters and plot. This drama, this play, is a myth about how something in nature came to be. Read on to learn why these characters are pushing up on the sky. So you're going to be listening to a story from the Native American culture, and in their culture, to explain why the clouds are in the sky, they told this story. It's entertaining. It's not necessarily the real science true fact. It's just what their culture believes, kind of like some of the things that we believe with us true. So I think you're really going to like it. The video link is in your activity in Google Classroom. You'll look up on the classwork tab. Today is Monday the 7th. It says Pushing Up the Sky, and it looks like this. It's this kind of gray-blue color. It says, watch the video of Pushing Up the Sky and answer the questions. The video box is pretty big, so you can see it, and you hit play. If it doesn't work, or if it's too small, just click on the link to make it bigger.
Pushing Up the Sky by Joseph Bruchak. Illustrated by Teresa Flavin.
As soon as we get off the meet, you're going to get this done because the video is 11 minutes long. It's a really good story, and I think you're going to enjoy it, but you have to watch the video before you answer the questions. The questions that follow give you your points for today. There's, I think, 5 of them, and they need to hear what's happening in the story. So question number 1, the genre is a drama. That's fun to say. The genre is a drama. In this drama, animals and people act together as the characters. This is a myth, so what is the author's purpose? And I kind of just spoiled that for you. Is this to persuade, to inform, or entertain? In the beginning of the story, it tells you what the name of the Native American tribe is. That is their culture in the story. Are they the Snohomish tribe, the Brown Bear tribe, the Pilgrim tribe, or the Joseph tribe? That's a pretty easy question, but it's in the beginning of your story, so you'll have to hear the beginning of the story to hear what the name is. This question says, what is a costume? Is a costume special clothing that actors wear? Is a costume the people in the drama? Is a costume an animal, or is a costume school clothes? In the story, there's a character called the chief, and there are lots of chiefs in the story. How many chiefs are in this play? Are there 5 chiefs, 6 chiefs, 7 chiefs, or 8 chiefs? You're going to have to hear the story to find out. The last question, dramas or plays like this one are divided up into scenes. Scenes are the part of the story, kind of like chapters in a book. How many scenes are in this story? 1, 2, 3, or 4 scenes or parts to the story. So you'll listen to your story, you'll really enjoy it, read the question, click on the answer that makes the most sense, that is correct. Click in the white space so it saves your answer and scroll on down. Press the submit button when you are finished. And then when you are turned in, that's the end of reading for today. We got a great big check mark for our Google Meet. When I say goodbye and stop the video, you're going to go to Google Classroom to do today's activity. And then when you're finished with that, you're going to log on to Lexia because that is a daily reading activity. After that, you have some silent reading time, and some of you have some important things to do between now and 9:45. Your reading passage for the week is called Whales. It has 4 paragraphs, and it is in the Google Classroom. If you have a Mr. Bill Meet, you'll pull this up when you have your meeting time. If you do not have a Mr. Bill Meet, you are still expected to be practicing this week. This is nonfiction text about whales. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I said 5 before. There's 4 paragraphs. Nonfiction about whales. So Angels first at 9:15, Caden at 9:30, and Jet at 9:45. Then we have our break for math. And then we have Taylor at 10:30 and Yaz at 10:45. 11 o'clock break, Azaria, and then Ian is early today, Melanie at 11:30, and by request, we've added Nikayla in at 11:45, and we've added Colin in at 12 o'clock, Napoleon at 12:15, Elise at 12:30, and Kamorion at 12:45. We had some friends last week who requested a time with Mr. Bill, and I started putting you in the schedule, and then you said, nope, just kidding, I won't read with somebody. So make sure that you are doing your job. If you don't have a meet on the computer with Mr. Bill's time is not the only time you should be reading during the day. And then afterwards, I need Yasmin, Taylor, Azaria, Caden, and Melanie to stay on the chat for just a couple minutes, and we're going to take care of something real quick, and then it'll be good to go. And this is the official end of your reading meets. You have reading activities to do until 9:45, and then a restroom and snack break at 9:45 to be back online with me at 10 o'clock for math. I'm stopping the video and I'm checking the chat box, questions and answers. You're working on reading, and we'll see you later.